So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. James, let's have it straight away. No frilly introduction. You seem pretty chipper about this Manchester United game. You've just reminded me as well, after my grim and dour introduction, that we've actually had 3 West Ham games since the last podcast we did. That superb victory at Aston Villa last Wednesday evening. That seems like a lifetime ago now. I must admit, we spoke to Tim Wildwood, didn't we, just 7 days ago? And you know what? We will reflect on that a little bit. It does seem a little bit old news, of course, now, but there is some positive to take from all this. And I'm already feel myself simmering down, which is a good news for the listeners and for my own general levels of sanity and anger. But Man United first, that's the freshest in everyone's mind. That's what everyone's going to be talking about when this podcast goes live in the early hours of Wednesday morning at UK time. So hit me, Manchester United. I've just literally flicked onto Twitter as we had the break there, and I've seen a tweet saying, "Oh, we lose by the odd goal at Man United and suddenly the whole world's falling to bits. Get a grip." And that sort of thing, and that's already annoyed me, so I'm triggered again. How do you come at it? Because we were talking, weren't we, in the first section about the lack of striker and all that sort of thing, and I think that the anger, that frustration I'm feeling now is because when there's anyone arguing against that, right? Whenever anyone in that end of January goes, "Oh, we're sixth, what are you moaning about?" Whenever anyone says that, you think, right, well, you're moaning just because you're moaning at a time when it's good. It doesn't mean the thing you're moaning about is any less bad. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when we were moaning about that, you were moaning about it. You wrote that really good piece in The Sun, articulating it really well, exactly why West Ham fans were annoyed despite being 5th in the league at the time. We spoke about it on this podcast. And the reason is that there's an inevitability to things like tonight. And if we have a bad run the next few games, I'm still not convinced that Antonio is actually just tired, by the way. He was definitely clutching his hamstring in that Fulham game. There was clear TV pictures showing him clutching his hamstring, and then he comes off after 70 minutes. If he was just tired, you'd have him in the squad tonight, wouldn't you? You'd have him on the bench. So I'm still very, very dubious about whether or not he's got another hamstring injury again. And the reason we were moaning and getting irate about that was because there's an inevitability. And tonight, everyone could see it coming, couldn't they, without a striker in the squad? And if we end up, it's not that I do think it's bad that they hooked Odubeko after bringing him on. I don't think that's done him any favours at all. And I don't know, if the next 4 or 5 games end up being poo and disappointing, it's one of those things you want to go, on one hand, you're going, "See, I told you so," but at the same time, taking no joy out of saying, "I told you so," or gloating about it. Not that, I'm the sort of bloke who normally would take pleasure out of gloating when I'm right about things, but you don't enjoy, you're not going, "Yes, see, I was right, everyone." You're going, "Oh, for God's sake, I knew this was going to happen." I'm just rambling now.
Yeah.
Interject.
I think that this result at United was born out of the fact that we just got a severe lack of squad depth, and obviously that goes back to the transfer window. We've already mentioned it in the intro, but David Moyes and the rest of the management at the football club, and that goes all the way up to the board level, should have seen this coming a mile off. If the fans can see it, then why can't they see it? I think David Moyes has done a great job this year, and I find it very hard to criticise him. But for him to allegedly make the decision that he's all right to coast the rest of the season with Antonio and Yarmonlenko, is incredibly naive. And two games down the line, we've already blown it. Yarmolenko, Tom, you just put in. It sounds like he's done his knee ligaments, so he's going to be out for a while. Odubeko, hopefully his confidence isn't too affected by what happened at Old Trafford. It's a bit harsh on the lad, but he let the game pass him by. He didn't really grab his moment, to be fair. But to pull him off could really affect him. So we're stuck with Antonio and his hamstrings. And it's just ridiculous. Like we shouldn't be in this situation. And the same goes for midfield. I mean, the fact that we've had to, Declan Rice and Thomas Souček have had to play 120 minutes tonight, and they will be expected to play 90 minutes on Monday night. They both of them have been in the midfield all season. Mark Noble's had to go in and do 120 minutes, and he's the backup at 33. It's like, why have we, in a season like we've got at the moment, where it's a massive opportunity. We've spoken about it for weeks now. It's a huge opportunity for a club like West Ham this season. They don't come around very often. And we've allowed ourselves to go into the second half of the season. Forget about going out the FA Cup. Like that is frustrating. But there's more to it than just losing at Man United and going out the FA Cup in the 5th round, because this now essentially could affect where we end up in the Premier League. I still think a top 10 finish will be a success. Even if we don't qualify for Europe, it'll still be classed as a successful season. But we've got we've got a battle on our hands now between the end of the season to even finish in the top 10, because if we ain't got a striker who can play every week, if we ain't got backup in midfield, we are well and truly screwed. And on top of that, what's Bonner? I mean, is he going to be out for a while or not? No one knows.
That could easily be an ankle ligaments, couldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So like, we've lost our best defender this season. Oh, Craig Dawson's still brick wall, so that's all right. But I mean, he's another one who had a great game at Old Trafford. To be fair, what a player
he did.
But yeah, it's just they're all those little mistakes and issues are now beginning to sort of pile up a little bit, slowly but surely, coming back to bite us a little bit. And I just hope that it doesn't end up putting or being the reason why we don't achieve what we have been capable of achieving this season. Because, I mean, I said it last week, there'll be a lot of questions to answer, particularly at board level, if it all goes wrong between now and May.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, and I just want to clarify this, the reason that I'm frustrated by tonight's showing is because, or the reason tonight's showing is frustrating, is because we haven't given it our best go. And by that, I don't mean on the night. I mean, as a football club, we haven't given the season our best go by leaving ourselves short in January. That if we'd have bought a striker, I'm not saying that if we'd have bought a striker in January, we'd have definitely won tonight. That's not what I'm saying, for anyone listening or on Twitter, whatever tries to oversimplify it. What the reason and the frustration comes from is, if we'd have gone up there and we'd bought someone in January and we had a backup midfielder, like you say, I've got no qualms about playing backup players, whatever. But if you'd have gone up there with those backups and given it your best go, and then the backup striker wasn't that we bought in wasn't good enough, and neither was the midfielder we bought in, then you don't mind, do you? And you lose by the odd goal to at Old Trafford, and you lose 1-0 in extra time. You go, fair enough, we've given it our best go, but we haven't. We've gone, you know what? Rather than give this our best go, we'll just try and stumble through with what we've got. It's not going to be. Yeah. It's not going to be that impressive. Like I said, there's an inevitability that we'll fall like down the league a bit and crash out the cup. It's just like, well, yeah. What's the point of us getting excited for stuff then? What's the point of us giving our all and getting up for it every week and paying our money at the club and the store and all that sort of stuff? I think if whoever's fault it was not buying a striker, Moyes or the club, it's a lack of ambition by someone. Whoever the semantics.
I think it's worth saying now and making it clear that I think the performance against United, it wasn't 100% terrible. I thought every single player on that pitch gave everything. There are one or two players that were probably a little bit below their best. I think Thomas Souček had probably one of his worst games for us. But it wasn't a terrible performance. It's just that because he set his standard and his bar so high, he's absolutely knackered. You could tell he was absolutely shattered towards the end. And I'm not surprised. So, he's going to, his passing is going to be a little bit off. He's not going to be as sharp as we used to see him. He's not going to be arriving in the box at time, and isn't going to be as impeccable as it used to be, or it has been. So I think it's worth remembering that performance, given the circumstances, could have been a hell of a lot worse, and it could have been a lot more than 1-0. And I think The players especially deserve a lot of credit for that. It's frustrating. But I'm sure the players are probably questioning it as well, going, hang on, you've got to help us out here. We're absolutely, we're on our knees here. Come on, Dave.
Rice, show some ambition. If you want me to stay here.
That's the one thing I'd like to say. I think, like Will mentioned, we've got, in my life or whatever, the 24 years, we've had two good teams in 2015, 16, 2005 and 6, and maybe now is the third team. And every year we've made mistakes in the cut. I find the only year we went out trying and we went out giving it everything was 15, 16. That was all the emotion of Upton Park and everything. We went out rightly in the way we should. This year, when we're up there, when we're 5 or what points behind this United side, they've dropped just as many players in their team as us. And we're sitting back and conceding possession and giving it to them and gifting it and willing to take a game into extra time without going for it. Sort of just drilling the players into the ground without ever trying to win a game and just take it to penalties. It just seemed a bit negative and a massive shame, because we literally as a club get this two times a decade, a sniff at having a good team who can go away and actually beat these sides. So to not go there is a disappointment, but like Jonesy said, you can't actually blame the players on the pitch. You can more blame the recruitment and the holes that we have in our squad, because everyone out there did a good job, and I can't say anyone had a bad performance particularly. It's just we didn't have the weapons to hurt them, and we didn't go for the game, and that's from Moyes and the management up top.
Yeah, we can't blame anyone on the pitch apart from Ben Rama. You're absolutely right, Tom. I couldn't agree with you more.
Here he is.
But Tom, what can you tell us about this Yarmolenko injury then? Because knee ligaments he's suggesting.
Yeah, so apparently the initial reports I've just seen briefly that it was something to do with Ogbona's ankle, potentially ligaments. Not much said on that, but it was definitely Yarmolenko's knee ligaments. Not saying what it is quite yet, but the fact that he came off as early as he did in the 50-odd minute and was limping about the way he did, and the fact that his ligaments might suggest that that's at least weeks or months, and it's not just he's out for the Sheffield United game, which is another hit. And like you said, Will, which could well be right, Antonio's probably not just a niggle or not just a precaution, is it really? So what do we have to do on Monday? Play Lingard through the middle or who knows what?
Oh, play your man Ben Rama, I suppose.
Yeah, go on.
But that's exactly what I'm not going to ask you. But look, if we're talking sort of like I said at the beginning of the season, one thing I will say is when we chatted about this, I know James, you absolutely love wheeling out the cliche about this is the season West Ham should win a cup. By the way, I'm fully expecting you to keep wheeling that out, even though we're out both of them for the rest of the season. But at the beginning of the year. Not happy. When we did our pre-season review show, when we said about where we'd like to finish in the league, what would be a good season, etc., etc., I said at the time that I don't buy into that cliche of we should be winning a cup, because ultimately it's almost always one of the big 4 or the big 6 that end up winning them. So I said, just don't go out of either of the cups in disgraceful fashion. We've gone out away to Everton in the League Cup and away to Man United in the FA Cup. Absolutely fine. The fact we get drawn against Man United seemingly every year is not our fault. And like I say, 1-0 in extra time, no shame in it whatsoever. But to switch to some more positive aspects of that game, Ben Johnson has had an absolute stormer when he's come on. I think he's unfortunate this season that Aaron Cresswell and Vladimir Kufal, our current wing backs or full backs, whatever, depending what system we're playing, are having an excellent season. Tom, if if you don't have to take any positives, if you've got none, feel free to come at me with some more negatives from the game if there's anything you want to get off your chest. But if you're looking at some positive sides, what can you take from them?
Exactly that once again Johnson's been thrown on the left side, which isn't his natural position, and put in a brilliant performance. In 45 minutes he hit the ground running. He looked good going forward. He's big, he's strong, physically he's got all the attributes to make his Premier League player. He's good off both feet, he's technical, and he's got the physicality, so he's a definite plus. When Ogbonna went off, clearly seeing Dawson take the mantle of being that leader of the back 4. He's been there matter of months. He's played less than 10 games for the club.
Lest we forget that James Jones wanted to get rid of him in January. Do not forget that.
To be fair at the time, but he's just come through everything, and he's just walked it down, and he didn't put a foot wrong. I don't think, sadly, obviously, I don't think any of the back four really put much wrong today. I think Soufal was actually a bit sloppier in the ball. I think he was poor in the ball, but defensively brilliant. All of them were brilliant. The goal was conceded by
Fabianski, by the way.
It. Yeah.
Fabianski, can we talk about those saves? Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. He was brilliant. The back four were brilliant. I think the goal, and I'm not going to blame Rice. He's done everyone's running for the last 2.5 years. He hasn't missed a minute. But the goal was on him.
So annoying, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The goal was on him, and yeah, that is what it is. But the amount he saved for us, so that's fine. Was on the back four. I think the solidarity we have and the belief they have as a back five unit, including 6 with Souček and Rice, that's a positive you've got to carry on taking, because we've looked very, very good for this last 2 or 3 months, even if we have conceded goals.
Yeah, Jonesy, come on then. Look, you're sitting there looking very pensive. Rice smiles when I've tried to bait you, and you've been very grown up in not nibbling. Be the voice of reason then for us. But before you do, or you might even be the voice of reason on this, Odubeko, subbing him on, subbing him off. My dad was going absolutely mental during the game. Get him off. And I thought, well, hang on. It's a bit harsh. He's only young anyway, but it seemed to me he was feeding off scraps. All right, he could have imposed himself a bit, but I think he maybe had 6 incidents where the ball was in his zone. So what's your thoughts on Odubeko, and then some general musings on what me and Tom have saying, and the game in general before we move on to the Fulham game?
Well, I don't know a great deal about Odubeko and his style of play. I mean, it was quite obvious straight off the bat that he's not the type of striker that likes to hold the ball up and bring players in. And he struggled playing that role. Balls were bouncing off him. He's clearly inexperienced in a position like that, and obviously coming on against your former club. Obviously, he left United at 2 years ago to come and side for us. Like, the pressure on his shoulders must have been huge. He wanted to make a difference, but he ended up letting the game pass him by. I wasn't overly surprised to see David Moyes take him off in the end. But it could go one or two ways. It could go that, confidence is shot and we never see him again. Or he sees that as a learning curve, and he works double hard in training to show David Moyes that he can play in that role, or he can make a difference in the starting 11. There's a reason why he stayed at the club and Afolayan went out on loan in January. Clearly, David Moyes prefers him. There's absolutely no doubt that he's a talent. It's just, we've got to use him the right way, and in chucking him on when he's, I don't think he was expecting to be on so soon in that second half. At Old Trafford in an FA Cup 5th round, going, right, you're the lone striker, go and win us the game. Like, the pressure was already on for him. So I just hope that it doesn't affect him, but I'm not 100% surprised that he was brought off in the end, because the game did just pass him by.
You're all right with that? You're all right with Moyes tooling him off like that?
But I think when you're trying to chase the game and you need a little bit of creativity, you need someone up there to be able to make something happen. He spent 50 minutes just not doing a great deal, probably longer than that, best part of an hour. If you include the...
Benrahma wasn't on that long, was he? Oh, sorry, we're still on Odubeko. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just heard the words ran around and didn't do anything, and I thought you'd moved on to side Benrahma already. My bad. Sorry.
I can't wait for our listeners to have a right go at you for this awful attack on one of our best wingers. But anyway, we'll stick on Odubeko. No, I don't think it was that harsh, to be fair. I can see why people do think it's harsh, but you're chasing the game, you need a bit of creativity up front, and Benrahma was doing a great job in trying to create things, and we needed just another body in there, someone like Lanzini, and
to complement him.
Yeah, who'd you take off in that situation? You take off the one that's not really doing a great deal, and unfortunately that was Odubeko.
The only thing I think with the Odubeko thing is he's been probably given a minute, given the moment in the 50th minute, his adrenaline did it, and he did look a bit shy, he did look a bit poor. But what that does long term, probably hauling him off out away at United as a young kid. I don't know. I know he's Irish, but I don't know where his family is from or whatever. But that's it. That in terms of him mentally, for his family, wherever they are, and his friends in Manchester, that's like everything. That's his dream.
It's
I
not
just
as
think
if
that what it'll do long term is bad. I know it's about winning a game, but I don't think what we did was more positive taking him off, because he still made the game bigger for us. When Yarmolenko's on the pitch, we had less of the ball in their third. He ran in behind. At least didn't look likely, but at least
it wasn't much worse than Yarmolenko, was he?
But it's not as if he'd been on the pitch for 10 minutes and get hauled straight back off again.
Yeah,
like he'd had the best part. He'd had over an hour on the pitch when you take into account the extra time. So he'd had an hour.
Worse, didn't it? Yeah,
it did seem a lot worse than what it was.
Right,
because
he'd had over 60 minutes.
Like, what?
Exactly. Yeah, he'd had over 60 minutes, and he wouldn't have got 60 minutes if he was starting, probably. So you know, it is what it is. I mean,
it looked worse than it is. You're right. You're right on that.
It'd be interesting to see what happens at the weekend. Obviously, if Antonio's not 100% fit, Yarmolenko's gone. He's going to play a part, I would have thought, at some point. So we'll see what happens then. But I can see why fans are a little bit concerned.
James Jones, the voice of calm and reason. Now, I don't like it. It just makes you feel on edge when I'm in this angry, unhinged sort of mood. And I'm going to inevitably get a load of abuse about Benrahma as well. And anyone who does tweet me is probably going to be right. Ah, goodness me. But anyway, Fulham, Tom, what a dross game of football that was. I mean, the Souček thing is what it is. I just the same as everyone else. I don't know if you've got anything else to add on that. The talking point was, of course, the Souček thing. Ridiculous. Mike Dean, as ever, just everyone said, loads of people. I've never seen football Twitter so united. Not just West Ham fans. You had all the big impartial names. I know Ian Wright played for West Ham, but Ian Wright was tweeting, Gary Lineker. All the journalists, just anyone who's anyone in football was just like, what is the game become?
Even Tottenham fans, right. Even Tottenham fans were going, that was a little bit harsh.
Yeah, and it's just silly, isn't it? Because we like rivalries and all that, but everyone who watches football likes football because of the game first and foremost, don't they? And watching that 7 or 8 times and deciding to send him off, I mean, what are you doing? He's walking back as if he's got no choice. It's like, yes, you did. Saying this the other day, if you're there, right, watching the screen and you're Mike Dean and you're looking at that thinking, right, if you're really not sure, because you don't watch something 7 times or 8 times or 10 times, whatever, if you're not sure, if you're watching that and you're in 2 minds, I'd be thinking, right, what's going to cause the most backlash here? Like, what is the most non-football decision I can make here? If I look at that, if I don't send him off, is there going to be mass uproar? No, there is not. You might get a few people going, oh, I thought you should have sent him off. It probably would have been amplified if Souček nods in the winner from the resulting free kick. It gets a bit more attention. If not, there's no way after on Match of the Day or Sky or wherever that they're in the studio going, how's he only giving him a yellow, or how's he not sent him off? There wouldn't be widespread, unanimous uproar about the fact that Thomas Souček didn't get sent off for that. But sending him off, like everyone, and afterwards, everyone's almost like just sad and downbeat about what's happened to the game. David Moyes is like, yeah, it's embarrassing. No one you spoke to was like, oh, yeah, well, I don't know what everyone's moaning about. Obviously, it was a red card. No one does. And it's like, I know the referees know the laws better and all that sort of thing, but that was nothing to do with laws. The fact of the matter is football is a game that we all want to watch. That's why it exists. It exists because so many people like it. And when all of those people who like it, they matter more than the one bloke in the middle, don't they? Or the lawmakers and all that sort of stuff. People going, oh, he had a clenched fist. Behave yourself. He had a clenched fist. It wasn't really that clenched anyway, but what are you talking about? Even if it was, I mean, what is that? Like, that is literally not what football is supposed to be about, is it? And you know what, James, I know a few people tweeted about the death threats and all that sort of stuff, and I don't really want to go into that too much because I think in society these days we spend far too much time reacting to just mindless, brainless scumbag idiots, don't we? And I don't really want to do that on the We Are West Ham podcast. I don't think it needs any of us three to stand here and go, oh, if you're sending Mike Dean death threats, then you're an idiot. Like, I think that certainly goes without saying on the We Are West Ham podcast. I don't want to give that too much oxygen, really, because that dominates the narrative and all that sort of thing. Obviously, a man should be getting death threats. But look, again, I'm going to be in a very rambly mood tonight, aren't I, James? You're going to have to start getting better at interrupting me. So give me some thoughts, one way or the other.
No, I think just on that, I think the death threats are even more embarrassing than the actual decision. Like what you've already said, it's just what you're doing, sending the referee death threats.
99.8% of people haven't done that, have they?
Done
so
that. Exactly.
Anyone listening to the We Are West Ham podcast, who's done that, I don't feel like there would be anyone among our listeners because they're not sort of real normal football fans, are they? So for the 99.99% of you listening who obviously weren't one of the ones who sent a referee death threats because of one of the worst decisions of the season, talk to me about the decision, the game, and just anything around all that, so we don't give any of these idiots too much more oxygen.
You've said all pretty much everything that I probably would have said. I mean, the one qualm I had with it was Mitrovic. He said to Mike Dean, like, "Oh no, it was an accident. Like, he didn't mean it." But he went down like a right, holding his face like it was like he'd just been shot in the face, and it was like, hang on, wait. Like, you've gone down the way you've gone down, which makes it a lot worse than what it actually was. The moment Mike Dean's gone for the red card, you've gone, oh no, he didn't mean it. Don't send him off. What was he trying to do? What was his game plan there? Because 1 minute he's trying to get him sent off. The next
maybe
minute,
it just really hurt.
I very much doubt it. I mean, have you seen the size of Mitrovic? Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't get butted by a goner. The other one, he stood there and took it.
Walked through it.
So exactly. So. Like
Souček's elbows are well pointy though.
It's true, but the whole thing frustrated me. It was about, hang on, what were you trying to do there? Like, are you trying to get him sent off, or did you try and get him sent off and then feel guilty afterwards after you'd realised that actually I've done a really bad thing here. I've been a little bit of a naughty boy. Like, it's a bit silly, but thankfully justice was done. I think we all knew it would get overturned, and the decision would be overturned. But
despite the clenched fist.
But that was the funny thing about it. It came out and said, oh, they were checking for a clenched fist. That was why Lee Mason had asked Mike Dean to go and check it on the pitch side monitor. So Mike Dean's watched it 8 or 9 times and seen that there isn't a clenched fist. There isn't a clenched fist there, and he's still sent him off.
Yes.
I mean, the whole thing's baffling. There's only one person in the world that knows why he came to that decision, and that's Mike Dean himself.
Yeah.
No one can, like, as you said, every single person went, why is he sent him off? There wasn't really another side to it. So, yeah, thankfully it was rescinded, overturned. But to be fair, he could have done with a 1 game ban just so he didn't do 120 minutes tonight, to be fair. At least 1 game off.
Absolutely. Tom, what did you, again, not a lot happened in that Fulham game. I do think that Mike Dean decision, as much as, the decision was annoying, it dominated headlines and the Twitter sphere and chats among fans everywhere. But I think if you're West Ham, you're probably thinking phew, because the talk would almost certainly after the game have been about Michail Antonio and the strikers thing, which is obviously going to haunt the club for every single game that Michail Antonio either isn't playing this season or isn't playing well, isn't it?
100%. That's what I was about to say when you guys that it marred the fact that we looked tired, we looked knackered in not just the striker department. Souček looked tired, Rice looked tired. Whole midfield, we didn't look like we have that buzz that we had away at Villa and that buzz that we've had for 95% of the season, to be fair to the club. But we just looked like we lacked that cutting edge, and we were just off the back of one of our best results all season and probably our best performance from start to finish. And I felt they just looked a bit flat off the back of that. But like we said between ourselves on a group chat, they're not a bad side. And that point's nothing to be scoffed at, because they probably could have nicked points this season that they haven't got. They're a very decent, so like they play decent football. They've got bravery on the ball, and they will outpass teams and get in. It's just they're finishing in their final third, which lets them down from being better than the Burnleys and Brightons of this world. So not the worst point in the world, but disappointing. The one thing I'll say on the referees thing is that What's the biggest worry for me is that Lee Mason and Mike Dean have been, a couple decades together worth of experience, and they've grown with the game, and they were there before VAR, and they were there when the game was supposedly a little bit harder, a man's game. And they've seen those things, and they should surely view that incident and understand that that is a 6'4" guy trying to get his arm over a slightly smaller guy. And that is literally what happens at every set piece. It's just come off wrong because just the way they've interpreted that is seriously worrying going forward for the English game, because they are supposedly the two most experienced, two of the best, and they've watched that slowed down 10, 15 times, however many times, and they've come to the conclusion that a legitimate movement going after the ball with a guy with a track record of over 200 games, 0 red cards, in the slow-mo, same slow-mo they're trying to look at VAR, he's already got his hands up going, sorry. Like it just, if that's how they're interpreting the game, then it's in a bad place. So we just got to, like we all said, death threats and getting on his back is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. But there needs to be reprimand. Like FA needs to look into it, because that's 2 mistakes in a row from Lee Mason and him, which have been very high profile and unprofessional. So something needs to be done about the standard of refereeing.
Yeah, I think it's the general game enjoyment that seems to have flittered away this season. And I was massively pro VAR beforehand, but I think the way it's been implemented is a bit of a joke. But again, that is a conversation that's been had 1,000 times. Look, lads, just quickly, very briefly, before we wrap up part 2, Aston Villa, what a game that was! What a team! I'm going to wait and let you two say some positive things before I say it's not even a narky comment, it's just a thing I've noticed. Everyone was absolutely up in arms. All right, I'll start with it. Jonesy, you're shaking your head already. Right, Jesse Lingard, everyone's absolutely delighted. I did think he played really, 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 really well, but if Emi Martinez hadn't dipped, there is a but, of course. If Emi Martinez hadn't dipped each of his gloves in full vats of Lurpak before the game, it would have been 1-1, and it wouldn't quite have been quite as whoopee. But it was fantastic and a brilliant result. But that bit did make me laugh, and I think I'm more annoyed because I bought Lingard into my team off the back of it. And but hey,
you create your own luck. I think we had like 30 attempts on goal in that game. So
I'm just in a bad mood, James. All right.
So like if you know, he's had, I think the stats come up at the end of the game. He had 6 shots on goal and 3 on target. So his performance alone, and even without those 6 shots, he was such an influence for us going forward. Him, Antonio, Ben Rama, linking up lovely. So yeah. Martinez is a much better goalkeeper than he was that night. I think we got him luckily on a bad night because he's a top class keeper. But yeah, one of the best debuts I've seen from a West Ham player in a long time, probably since Payet, I would have thought. Whether we'll have the same impacts, I don't know, but fully deserving of a brace, fully deserving, regardless of the keeping, fully deserving. And I would say our best performance of the season away at Villa. Tough place to go. Went there and completely outplayed them. Still can't quite work out what John McGinn was saying about how he went there and played for the point. Like he actually said, we turned up and played for the point. It's like, mate, it doubled the amount of chances that you had.
We just stopped their best player from playing. Yeah.
We scored 3 goals. Like, what are you talking about, mate? But yeah, no, good result. Good performance. Jesse Lingard, best player that's ever played for West Ham. Apart from Craig Dawson, I'll add.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've finally got you to pin your flag to the mast on something this evening. Yeah, I know. I was being facetious about Lingard. Of course, it was absolutely phenomenal. The way that Marshall Moyes got it tactically spot on in Fredericks and Kufal, who had Grealish just in their pockets all game, and brilliant idea. Nothing wrong with freezing their most attacking, threatening player out the game whatsoever at all. Tom, I'd love to get your thoughts on Villa. Have you got anything really brief to add on that, to what me and Jonesy were saying? But Jonesy said it's the best performance of the season. Are you having that?
Yeah, I think that and Leeds, for me, just 2 solid away performances against 2 very good sides who are willing to play good football. And you can see the extent to which we have the ability and the bollocks to get personality and play our own football. And I think what Lingard does is he allows Benrahma to play on the left in his best position. Then you've got Rice and Souček with more balance. There's less responsibility on Souček getting forward early in attacks, and he can actually stay there with Rice and win the ball higher up. So Lingard's the one playing off the strike. I think it just gives us way more versatility. He's obviously, like I thought coming in, he's a really technically good footballer. He will link the play. It was probably better than anyone could imagine his debut, but he looked the real deal, and we've just got to really hope that this little blip, I know it's 2 games and it's a United and Fulham, but that these don't really harm us and we get back on the pedestal, because we have looked brilliant. That game was the best we've played, so fingers crossed they get back to that.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, look, comprehensive, detailed reaction there to those 3 games West Ham have had since our last podcast. Only one.